Hey guys, I hope you guys are doing well. I have a little friend today. So cute. I wanted to talk about fear and share my experience with fear before going to Vietnam and basically my fears with that and how I just went through them and quote unquote overcame my fears. And last week, Derek and I actually made a video and had a conversation about the topic of fear and what it meant to us and how real it feels when we're in it. And yeah, I thought of making this. So, me going to Vietnam, that dream, that desire actually arose while living in Italy for a month. And yeah, it became such a dream. So once I graduated, a little bit after graduation, I committed to it and I started to voice it. And trying to figure out like, okay, how am I gonna do this? Like, how can I find a job? And just, it was so unknown to me, like absolutely no knowledge of how to live abroad, you know? So I started doing research, and at that time, I was overly positive about it, and I was really dismissing a lot of the fears that I had, and dismissing a lot of the feelings of just um, nervousness and just all of that, putting it under the rug. And because I was overly positive, I wasn't looking at the whole picture. And the way that I was thinking about it was like, okay, I can do this. Um, like nothing can go wrong. Like I got this. Like I'm confident. I'm adventurous. Like yeah, fuck yeah, you know. But what I was doing at the same time was that I was putting a lot of my fears under the rug. And when we don't see our fears and when we don't acknowledge them and when we don't kind of quote unquote like face them, those fears get put into a bottle or under the rug and it keeps getting bigger and bigger and they keep showing up over and over again in different aspects of our lives. And whether we know it or not, we are choosing to act on fear and we manifest things from that itself. Hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, so I had all these fears. So my fears were like, I'm afraid to leave my parents alone. I am afraid that I'm gonna lose my faith. I'm afraid that I might fall off, you know, the path of spirituality. I was afraid that I was gonna get stuck in the middle of nowhere and I wasn't gonna be able to figure shit out. You know, I was afraid. I was just afraid of a lot of shit. And I was afraid of, also at the time, it was also like a choice that, like, everybody was going back to school or everybody was like finding, you know, jobs, and I'm over here like I just want to go live abroad. So there was a lot of fear of like, am I making the right choice? Like, should I be also doing that as well? And there was fear that I was like not gonna have that life that we are led to believe is the only life we can have. So I was afraid of kind of not falling into the category like everybody else. And I'm not saying that that's bad at all, and I'm not saying that like it's right or wrong, but I was afraid that I was missing something if I were to go abroad, and that yeah, I was afraid of that. So anyways, one of the biggest fears that I had was actually being alone. And I was really, really afraid of being alone in a whole other country without my family, without my friends, and just being in that space by myself, you know, even having like I'd never moved out before. So this is the first time where not only was I moving out of my parents' house, but I was also doing it in another country. So there was a lot of fear of solitude behind that. But anyway, so I decided to put it all under the rug. I decided to put it all into a jar and pretend that everything was great, right? Like just super positive about it, super optimistic. And that actually led me to get into this unhealthy relationship, right? Because my biggest fear was to be alone. So, and my biggest fear was like, yeah, like my biggest fear was to be alone, right? So I got into this relationship trying to fill that. And I ended up not going the first time. And not only because of that, but I also got into a car accident. So, which I also feel that was manifested because I've had all these fears lingering, and that's the way that it kind of manifested out. But anyway, so I ended up not going the first time. So my fears caught up to me, right? Like, even though I wasn't aware of it at the time, like, I decided to choose fear, you know, and I had to go through that stage of my life. And then once I came out of that relationship, and once I really realized what I wanted and what I was trying to hide, and just seeing the whole picture itself, there was more faith and there was more drive and there was more trust. And that's a big one. And at the same time, I was reading The Universe Has Your Back by Gabby Bernstein, and it's transforming your fear into faith. And oh man, that book totally helped with literally transforming my 10 plus fears into faith and just going, you know. But there's an exercise in that book where she has you write down your fears, and where you do this meditation. At the end of the meditation, you are guided to write just from your heart, you know. And yeah, so the meditation is intended to give you clarity and to kind of have like the universe, your inner wisdom, your higher self, like guide you to truth, you know. So I wrote all these fears before, 10 plus fears, right? And I did the meditation. It was so crazy. Like, this meditation we actually use, Carla and I, on our workshops, and I'm using them with my clients when I do coaching because it's just so powerful. But yeah, so I wrote my 10 plus fears and I did the meditation, and afterwards I just let my hand be guided. And a lot of the things that I got was this trip of moving abroad is going to make you closer to me than you think. You know, your parents are okay. What else did it say? I wish I had my notebook with me, but, oh, actually, I'm writing a book, right? So I'm actually putting that in one of the chapters. Let me see, where is it? Okay, so this is what it said, right? So after my hand wrote, trust me, the abroad trip, it's not limiting you, but it's expanding you in ways you don't even understand at the moment. I got stay faithful to me even when you go abroad, stay in gratitude, and I also got love, love, love. I also got release the doubt, limits, and be compassionate. And then I also got don't change your loving heart. I will send you people for lessons, but always receive them with love and let them go with love. So a lot of the fears that I had too was kind of like change. Change is a huge one as well. And I was afraid of losing friends. I was afraid of also not... The dream that I had and the dream that I still have now is to be a speaker, to spread love and to share love on stage through my writing. And I was really afraid that that wasn't going to happen because I was going to go abroad. But when you have a desire in your heart, like, man, it's really hard to not to follow with it, you know, or to step into it. So anyways, like, I also got a lot of just visions of me speaking on stage and being with people and writing, you know. So it was really touching. And it's so crazy because I actually created the Vibrant Souls in Vietnam, and that's exactly what I was doing, right? Like, I was being love and sharing love and creating this space where everybody could come together and do that for themselves as well. And yeah, and everything that I wrote afterwards, it came true. Like, I met people that I received with love and had to let go with love. If anything, me going abroad did guide me more to myself and more to God than ever. You know, so much trust came through it, so much faith, so much like connecting with myself and being clear more with what I want. And yeah, so anyways, like that's a huge thing to do when it comes to fears, is really acknowledging them and being aware of them. And kind of like what Derek said in the video, like it doesn't make you weak if you acknowledge your fears and if you're scared. Nothing like that at all. It makes you stronger, you know? Like sometimes we have to go through a storm to see the rainbow. And I think sometimes with fear, it's just like that. Sometimes we have to write out like those feelings and emotions and those thoughts that come with it. But it's better to face it, literally face it, and really see the clarity and the truth behind it, or with it, or in front of it, rather than pretending to see some kind of distorted truth and put everything else under the rug, you know? But the more we acknowledge our fear and the more we see them and become aware of them, and the more we step into that thing that we're super afraid of, the more we realize that fear is in our head. And just as we created and believed in our fears, we also have the power to release them and to let go of them. And the more we step into this thing that we're most afraid of, the more we realize like, oh, like we don't have nothing to worry about, right? Like it's like this, oh, aha moment. And one of the things that I was afraid of when I was going to Vietnam, like I've mentioned, was being alone and like my parents not being okay and like falling off the spiritual path. And like once I moved, it was this thing of like, oh, my parents are fine, why am I worried again? And it was this feeling of like, oh, like I love being alone, like I'm really connecting with myself and really honoring that as well, you know, and falling in love with myself in a sense. And it was also this feeling of like, oh, like I'm not gonna fall off the spiritual path, there's no such thing, you know. And even being afraid of like, yeah, like you just become aware of like, oh, like I don't have anything to worry about, you know. But also another thing that I want to add is that if a fear does come true, then in that moment you figure it out, right? You don't try to figure it out before it happens, because it hasn't happened yet, right? Whatever it is. But in that moment, like there's a whole other mindset that you have. There's a whole other way of looking at it. There's a whole other like way of approaching it in a sense. And one of the fears that I actually had was that I was going to get stuck and stranded in the middle of nowhere. And it did happen. You know, like my bike died, my phone died, didn't really know where I was at, but in that moment, I remember taking a couple of deep breaths. And I remember taking a step back and just realizing like, oh, I'm okay. I'm still breathing. My external things are a little bit off, right? Like, didn't expect this. But when I was able to take a moment back and realize that I was okay, I was able to figure out a solution, right? And sometimes the solutions come in that moment when shit hits the fan, not before. And yeah, in that moment, I did that and somebody ended up helping me, you know? And I found a solution, and it was more faith and conviction and more trust of myself and also the universe, right? Because in that moment, I trusted myself that I can figure shit out. And I think sometimes we don't trust ourselves, and that's why we don't dive into what we're most afraid of. And sometimes to gain that trust, we have to dive into it, you know? But anyways, I just wanted to share that, you know, like the fears dissolve the more you step into what you're most afraid of. So yeah, acknowledge your fears, guys. If you have any questions or any thoughts or anything, just reach out, right? So yeah, much love, guys.